All right, let me just give a couple more seconds for people to stream in. Okay, let's get started. Okay, good afternoon, everyone from Hawaii. Good morning if you're coming in from Southeast Asia. And welcome to our Fall 2023 LuceSEA Southeast Asian Transition Webinar Series. This series is titled Embracing Collaborative Approaches, Understanding Transformation in Rural Southeast Asia. So last month, our colleagues, Dr. Krishna Suryanatha and Olivia Meyer, they introduced our collaborative field school with Kaen University in Thailand and Hasanuddin University in Indonesia. So I'm sure, as they mentioned, the field school would not have been possible without these two key partners and their long-standing relationships with, the communities in which our students carried out their collaborative field learning. At the workshop that we held after the field school, I think one of the key topics that came out was not just how we collaborate across research institutions, but how we can more meaningfully collaborate with the communities that we are conducting research in. Therefore, leading us to the title that we have, Collaboration Dead, or Can We Revive It? So today our panel will discuss some of these challenges and opportunities associated with universities collaborating with local communities. Is collaboration dead? Or how can we revive it? So our panel today will be reflecting on this issue. So we have with us Muhammad Alif Sahide, who is a professor and head of department at Hasanuddin University's Faculty of Forestry. We're also very happy to have with us Sukanlaya Choenkwan, assistant professor and assistant dean for academic service at Khon University's Faculty of Agriculture. And then we have Micah Fisher, who's a research fellow at the East-West Center. My name is Ming Yong. I'm also a research fellow at the East-West Center, and I'll be your moderator for today. So we'll be going through a series of questions for the panel, and which we'll go through in the next hour before moving on to a Q&A session. So I'm sure there'll be lots of questions, so please feel free to leave them in the Q&A box if anything comes to mind. Okay, so I won't hog the time any further. Let's get to it. So I'm going to get the panelists to introduce themselves. So could all of you tell us about yourself, the communities and issues that you engage with, and how you engage with local communities in your work? Alif, do you want to go first?
Yeah, thank you. Just want to share screen. Thank you very much for having me on this webinar. This is a very good chance for us to share and also learn from all of you. So just want to introduce about I am affiliated in the Forestry Faculty, Universitas Hasanuddin, Indonesia. We call it as Forest and Society Research Group. Here we build a research group, but actually it is just the group. It is just only about the journal at in the 2016. Yeah, we have 3 missions of building this journal about the research and focusing in Southeast Asia. Yeah, providing a journal for those who to publish a good publication, but also we have this second and third mission about the capacity building networking in underrepresented regions in Southeast Asia, and also would like to involve on local community issues and also research and policy engagement. Because of this second and third missions, we think that journal is not enough. So we built this Forest and Society Research Group affiliated in UNHAS. Even it is not UNHAS, but a lot of those that who affiliated or those who engage not only on Universitas Hasanuddin, but also our networking of reviewers or editors in the journals. So this is our group. Yeah, we work on not only research but also capacity building. Are also involved with local communities. Yeah, within this let's call it a center. Yeah. And then this is the local community issues that we have here in Indonesia, especially in Sulawesi. Yeah, a lot of green grab state forest conservation project, and also a lot of huge plantation in Indonesia, mineral mining, especially in Sulawesi. There is emerging issues on nickel. Yeah, nickel minings. Yeah, they want to create a lot of battery for these electronic vehicles, yeah, and it is create land dispositions. We also have issues on communities adaptation and mitigation encountering climate change. A lot of issues also the compatibility between the local tenures, traditional tenures, and the policy options of social forestry and creating the demise of commons, yeah, and issues on gender inequality and farmers collective actions, yeah. This is an example what we have the research in the group, yeah, about Yang Kebena is palm oil agroforestry forestry program. We also working on understanding livelihood and aspiration of young people, gender issue, impact adaptation, climate change. Yeah, we also have some consultancy and also capacity building on forest management unit in Papua and West Papua provinces, and a lot of issue also on commons and commoning in Sulawesi. This is our ongoing research at the moment. I think that's all. A little bit my introduction. We can discuss later.
Thank you, Alif. Kat?
Let me share. Okay, can you see the slide? Okay, let me. Okay. Okay. Good morning from Thailand. Let me introduce myself again. My name is Choenkwan. I am an official in Department of Agricultural Extension and Development, and I am an assistant dean for academic service, Faculty of Agriculture. How my work engaged with the local community is on I have engaged with the local community is in many ways. As a teacher in an university in Thailand, we have 4 missions to do that are teaching, research, academic service, and maintaining art and culture. With an academic service part, I am required to work with community and work for community. And as a teacher in Khon University, the university's value and organization culture is SMART, SMART, which S stand for social devotion, which means that we are encouraged to work with community. And as a law of assistant dean for academic service, my work is to link university to work with communities as transferring knowledge from the university to farmers to improve their quality of life. And as a teacher in Department of Agricultural Extension and Development, we teach students how to work with communities, and we always take students to learn from the communities, such as visit the successful farmer group. And we also have a class called community analysis, which we take the student to practice how to collect data in the community. And I also have a class called training experience in the communities, which we encourage students to live with farmers in the community for a month. The picture shows that what they learn when they stay with the community with the farmers. And as a researcher in agricultural extension and development, some part of my work is to finding ways to solve farmer problems. And we work directly with the farmers by applying participatory action research. So in the picture that we work with the rice farmer who do organic farms, but they have a limitation of market, which our research is try to find an alternative way of marketing and by doing online marketing. And we also work with the farmers community in the drought conditions. So we try to find an alternative activity for them. Yeah, that is a short introduction of me.
Thank you very much, Khon. Micah, over to you.
Hi, thanks a lot. I'm also going to share my screen, show some pictures. I have a much less institutional sort of an introduction. It's really great to be here with Kaen and Alif talking about these issues. I really struggled to find an institutional way of understanding how universities think about collaboration with communities. So I had to start much earlier. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself growing up. And I'll tell you them in the form of cartoons, kung fu movies, and farmer networks. So given this is a Southeast Asia kind of focused talk, I was fortunate to grow up in Southeast Asia, and there was all these, my parents worked with farmer groups across the region, and these are the kind of artifacts that you would see around the house, these cartoons with, organizations like Studio Dria Media, drawing up different ways of how communities, how to work with local communities. And it was, growing up in the village and going to very remote areas, looking at arid landscapes, talking about issues of cover crops, thinking about hedgerows, thinking about, soil quality, things like that. Those were the kind of issues that we were talking about a lot when I was a kid. And, I would get brought along, and I'd find myself as a kid running around these local farmer network meetings. And in a lot of these settings, it was all about, going to local communities, listening to them, trying to understand what the issues are, strengthening networks in the context of really, really, challenging political situations about how to get resources and do sort of community development sort of work. And the way that I interacted as an 8-year-old, for example, here's a picture of us doing home movies because there was a video camera laying around. So we thought we'd make some home movies of what kind of stories we could put together. But these cameras were being used and documenting what the challenges of rural communities would be like. And I think there's a long history of this, for example, in agricultural extension initiatives of how do universities and institutions really think about their role and what kind of support that they can provide in terms of working with local communities. Moving to the US as a middle schooler, the issues were totally different. So growing up in the US, these are the kind of books that in the 90s middle schoolers were reading, like Bomb the Suburbs, and things about how hip hop was an avenue to thinking about social change and the issues of race and just, you know, how inner city issues were problematic. And that's what led me to really study these sorts of issues. And I went to the University of Richmond, which was kind of a wealthy, you know, undergrad liberal arts a university. The kind of initiatives that I was interested in was going into inner city communities, working with social worker agencies, working as a caseworker, listening to what type of issues. So the day-to-day work in the inner cities was like filling out applications of how to get a forklift certification, or work for the Postal Service, or get resources for sheltering or substance abuse issues, going to Narcotics Anonymous meetings with, you know, these are the kind of cases that we were dealing with in downtown Richmond. And the contrast of that with what we were talking about and learning about and doing at a liberal arts college was always really jarring. And so after university, I went back to Indonesia and worked on tsunami recovery, and really began to understand what some of the NGO world and donor communities were talking about with recovery. And, you know, these issues of going to communities, listening to what the issues are, you know, working on this example here, we documented the development of a tofu factory and how you get farmers together with, you know, local access to market, and how local employment issues get improved. Also worked in Jakarta, lots of issues of flooding and how infrastructure development gets done. You know, what are the impacts to local communities? How do you make communities be safer, but also ensure that you know, rights and access to livelihoods and just individual security and housing was all taken care of. That was all, you know, before going to grad school, and that's where the frameworks really began to hit home. That's where I really began to understand, you know, how to make sense of all those issues of going to these places, trying to work, trying to, you know, be helpful in any way possible. So I was reading things like Planning in the Face of Power. I was in an urban planning program at the University of Hawaii, and looking at issues of participatory action research from Orlando Falls Borda, the Latin America sort of movements, also reading the initial background of the farmer network movements, things like participatory rural appraisal, and, you know, how development projects work. I was really fortunate to also have really good mentorship who worked with communities here at the University of Hawaii. So the Matsunaga Institute, Department of Urban and Regional Planning, had this real history of thinking about communities as having real expertise, bringing them into the classroom, supporting initiatives of local, you know, of people who wanted to research, placing them in those communities. And also really lucky to have good mentorship that was able to help me rethink, you know, what are the origins of agricultural extension? What are these ideas that come up with such possibility, right? So, you know, how do you institutionalize ways that universities or governments or, you know, services are supportive of local communities, and also being able to identify at what juncture or in what ways they become co-opted or used for things that they shouldn't be. And that was a real education that really helped me to think about how to work with local communities. And I began to reconnect with old networks, people who really have been doing this, and it's incredible the type of NGO work and the type of networks of people who are working in communities across Southeast Asia, how, you know, the participatory mapping, the sketch work, the convenings, the, you know, the support when conflict arises, conflict resolution mechanisms. It's really quite extensive and oftentimes overlooked in the divide between universities teaching, learning, and what people are actually doing. So this shared learning dialogue was really significant for me, because it was looking at different types of pedagogies, how we learn, you know, for different populations. How do you bring people together? How do you think about everybody having expertise? where there's a real culture of kind of hierarchy. Yeah, like this book here, Learning Together, right? Learning while teaching, so that we all learn from each other, and using that as a basis for understanding the types of issues, and not just better understanding the problems, but also supporting better solution type spaces. My research was about indigeneity, land tenure, and rights. This was in Indonesia at a time. Alif already talked about the large land enclosures taking place. And it was really a story of deforestation at that time. But there was also, at the same time, a huge, environmental justice social movement demanding land rights back to local communities. And as part of my dissertation project, I was able to work with a multi-stakeholder group of national government, local government, activists, local indigenous leadership, youth, really groups that had never sat together to think about policymaking together, and to use these frameworks to try to be part of a policy, to a making initiative, to document it, but also to make sure that some sort of policy is supportive of local priorities. And it was really significant. This was recognized by the Indonesian president as the first indigenous community, Adat community, that was able to get land rights for those communities. And I'll stop there, and I'll continue that story when I come back later. But thanks. Sorry for a bit of an extensive introduction, but that'll be much. My next talking points will be much shorter. Thanks, Ming Lee.
Thanks, Micah, for sharing your stories. That was super fascinating, and all of you. Yeah, so I think, we are really looking into and challenging the kind of ways of thinking about research when we're working for communities. I think researchers often have to grapple with issues about whether, their research is being just extractive. Who are we actually doing this research for? And who is it benefiting, and what role communities can play in that? So it's really great to hear from all of you about the work that you're doing. For the next prompt that I have given to you all, I would like you all to reflect on what meaningful engagement or collaboration with these local communities mean to you. Like, what would that involve? Alif, could you start us off? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I would like to share what about what meaningful collaboration. I think the most important is we really need to learning and understanding the issues in the local communities, or in the because sometimes we are far away from the really what the issues are in the local community. So learning and understanding, I think it is the foundation. What really happened in the ground, a lot of gaps, a lot of structural power, a lot of things happen in the field, and it is sometimes it is fragmented and complex. And also we need to connecting practical and science, both from science, practical to science, and back science to practical. These two ways need to a good bridge. We need to provide a good bridge, because sometimes it is a huge gap between practical and science. Practical means what really need, for example, for community-based natural resource management, for example, what really happened both in the local level and also in the policy level. Sometimes need to bridge this two realm, and the collaboration means also that how to navigate change. Sometimes we cannot navigate change, because of, for example, climate change. But we really need to more, for example, in a more direct what we can do, for example, in the more minor issues, for example, food security or something that more we can engage with the local communities. And also I'm working in the university. It is also good for us. From this process, we can improve our curriculum. We can improve our teaching as well, that directly linked with the society. Yeah, I think these 4 dimensions, it will be create co-production of knowledge and also actions. Yeah, I think that's all from me.
Thank you, Alif. Kaen?
Yes, let me share. So for me, the meaningful of working with community is for my student. Sorry. Sorry. My computer is confusing. So sorry. So for me is as a teacher, the meaningful of working with the community is the learning space for my students. They can practice they can practice their skill from what they learn in the class, and they can also experience the real world that cannot be taught in the university. This is a reflection from my student who lived with the farmers for a month. He said that what I learned and received from this training experience is the way of thinking, planning, and investing in things to get the most value, a real way of life that can be found anywhere else, and you must go and do it yourself. It's an experience you can't find it in a classroom. We talk that, and when we discuss with my students, and we can teach them knowledge, but something that we cannot teach them is inspiration or motivation to live or to solve the problem in the real world. So when they go out and they learn from the people who fight in the real world, that they have some, they think that is meaningful for them. And one of my master students did her thesis by working with a group of vegetable farmers to improve their vegetables production and quality of the vegetables. And she told me that she really proud of her research, that farmer get direct benefit from that. And the farmer came to her to say thanks. That is really meaningful for her. Is equally with she get master degree. And for me, is working with community is also my learning space. I always learn the new thing from the farmers, and they are always have a new challenge to overcome. Yeah. And it's also meaningful for me too, that my research direct benefit to the farmers. That what I have done is helpful for them. That is for short from me.
Thank you, Kaen. Micah.
Okay, can you hear me? I shared screen but forgot to mute. Okay, I'm going to continue with this story. I was doing my research with this community. It was a significant initiative to get recognition of land. It was really significant. There's been international stories written about this as being the first case of gaining recognition for a community like this. It was significant because it was the first example of formalizing the return of land back to local community control from the state. And a lot of people were really proud of this initiative, and I was very proud to be part of an initiative like this, working with local communities and institutions and government and NGOs and people coming together to support these sort of values. But at this public consultation, I had kind of an inflection point. I went off to go sit with some young men at a local warung. These are not them. It's just an example of them. These are local friends that I was working with. But we got into a pretty intense discussion about the impacts of what land rights recognition would mean for local communities. And you know, they really challenged kind of the overall narrative of what this success story was all about. You know, they talked about day-to-day problems that rural youth are having. You know, where do I get access to land? You say that we're getting land back, but we're not going to see any additional land as part of this policy. You know, questions like that about what is everybody all excited about, because the local political economy and conditions of those local communities were facing a lot bigger challenges, right? One was talking about them having to migrate because they couldn't find local opportunities. They were talking about what type of subsidies came from the government. They talked about local institutions and what, you know, which kind of alliances of farmer networks that they were supporting. And that began my, it required me to really rethink what participation and collaboration and working with local communities were. Because even though I had thought I was part of an extremely collaborative initiative in documenting this participatory policy mapping and policy drafting process, it turns out that when you look at these issues from different perspectives, the questions are also have to change. So I changed my approach to rethinking participation by starting to work and live with local farmers, and also really try to document what local decision makers were making. So I went back and forth from kind of ethnographic approaches, really participating with local communities to understand what their decision-making processes were in these landscapes. And you know, there's a lot of writing about these sorts of issues, but it complicates and makes more interesting how we think about local participation. And the issues that I began to understand from, you know, day-to-day people who are working in the fields are very different than the formalization of a particular policy. And so that's just one example of not just thinking about participation as working with local communities, but also beginning to see what participation and engagement with local communities looks like from multiple perspectives. And I mentioned, you know, the work here in Hawaii. This is a paper that was written by friends and colleagues that really tried to document how a university initiative can work with a local community. And you know, there's a lot of text, but I just want to point out the 5 principles here that are talked about, which I think are really good ones and really important ones to mention here. So building partnerships based upon community values with potential for long-term commitments. So getting beyond just the one-off coming to collect data and then leaving, I think that's a really important way of thinking about approaching research and how we can just rethink the overall frameworks for how we work with local communities. The second is privileging indigenous ways of knowing, right? So really thinking about the ontologies and the ideas about what space, place, development, progress means from local perspectives, or the kind of words that people use locally to explain what's important to them in the world is a really important sort of reframing of how we think about working with communities. Third is creating a culture of learning together as a co-learning community, right? Really privileging expertise from multiple different perspectives, ideas, viewpoints, ages, genders, all of those things. Fourth is fostering reciprocity and compassion and nurturing relationships, right? Researchers can leave, but these issues continue to remain, and really starting from a place of empathy and understanding the histories and the hurts and those kind of issues that communities begin with when you enter into a community and being really receptive to those things. It's a change in approach in how potentially universities or research institutions or programs engage with local communities. And fifth, utilizing empowering methodologies and capacity building strategies. I think what I found, especially working with Alif and the growing network of people that we've been working with, is really understanding that the university has a lot of power and legitimacy in different places, especially in guiding conversations. The work that on the journal that we've been working on together has really spotlighted, who gets to decide what gets published or what gets assigned an indexing system. And that can really be the basis for, really talking about social change in the very basic ways of working with students and talking about what's important to highlight and to support when we think about working on research. I think I'll stop there. Thanks.
Thank you all. I think these are really important perspectives, especially in terms of thinking about centering community perspectives and what they want, the role of the researchers in being flexible and nimble, and the type of methodologies that we try to use to understand change, and also in terms of the role of education, higher education, in engaging with these communities. So let's move on to our third question, and back to our very provocative webinar title. Is collaboration dead? So I know there are a lot of challenges, as Micah alluded to, in terms of how universities engage with local communities because of the different kind of power dynamics and priorities of universities versus what local communities want. So is collaboration dead, or do we have the mechanisms to revive it? What are some of the challenges or barriers that we continue to face when it comes to collaborating with local communities? And please also feel free to respond to each other's comments from before if you have any thoughts. Alif, please.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just want to begin with what is university styles in Indonesia that work for collaboration. Yeah, in Indonesia, it is not formal, but it is common understand that it is a territorial-based university. For example, if you are in Universitas Hasanuddin, means your territory for collaboration, your site only in South Sulawesi or in Sulawesi, but it is really sometimes make you, this is a burden, yeah, the territorial-based university. And in Indonesia, we have also let's call three. They say that three dharma. Yeah, we say that three dharma. Three dharma means three functions of university: this teaching, research, and community service. These three things that also will be an avenue for making such collaboration, but it is also sometimes what is your really focus, yeah, and also in Indonesia now they are much more focusing a lot of opportunity for, they call it hilirisasi research, means downstream research focus, yeah. And sometimes they are also forget about the fundamental research, yeah. So they want to directly to more practical research, but without clear and support for more fundamental research, yeah. And in Indonesia also it is too much administration, yeah. We have, for example, in this in the last semester I have 15 classes, yeah. It is, we have too much students, yeah, and here, and then it is too much administration tax. And if you and then they also have metrics, yeah. For example, for collaboration, for example, how much MOU, or agreement you take, the methods could be dangerous as well, because it is not based on the quality of the collaborations. And now in Indonesia also, we have a platform for the student mobility. They call it Merdeka Belajar. This is good for the students. We use this platform for make collaboration directly involving the students, like a Kaen presentation. They have 1 month or until 6 months or 1 semester in outside campus. They go to the village. They go to the directly to the local community for making their own project, their own research, for example. But actually, this Merdeka Belajar, it is not for docent, or for the lecturer. I think this program should also for the lecturer as well, not only for the students. And what the issues on the collaboration, that this is for the university perspective, and what about the issues for the local communities? We have this is a lot of structural power, also informality. Sometimes it is make frustration when we do for example, action research. The issues of social forestry, for example, 10 years ago is still the same now, without meaningful change. And also the dilemma of intervention. You want to deal with the very tiny or local context, or broader context. Or if you deal with this local context, probably we could still navigate this in the local context. But if you deal with the broader engagement, that it means you will face much more power dynamic, both in the district or provincial level and national level. And for example, under platform of action research, who really take action? Because we need a long period, not only a certain programmatic collaboration. So it's much more. I think the question is who take actions. For the action research, I think it is also a question. I think it would be good if the community themselves take an actions. And we also not only based on the targeted outcome for the collaboration, but also the process-based learning and action. And this is also the last point that I want to say, that not to create additional burdens for local communities. I think that's all what I can say, and we can discuss later.
Thank you, Alif. Kaen, I just also wondering if you see any similarities with what Alif has said when you're reflecting on the challenges that you face. So just feel free to add on if you have any.
Okay. Yes. Okay. I just want to share something. So for me, from the question is collaboration is there. In my side, I don't think is still alive, because my colleagues and I are always working with the communities, and we are pushed by university to work with the communities, with the university mission and policy, and sometimes is government policy. So in 2 years ago, in 2021 and 2022, so during the COVID time, Thai government have a huge project called U2T. It's from university to Tambon. Tambon means sub-district. So it means university to community. The idea of this project is to bring knowledge from the university to community, to help to boost their income, farmer income, and improve their quality of life. This is a 1-year project with a grant of about 800 baht per community, or is about 800,000 baht per community is about 23,000 US dollar. And the key working person is a professor in the university. So the grant went to almost every sub-district in Thailand, with about 6,000 sub-districts that with a responsibility for almost all university in Thailand. So in my Khon University, we in charge of about 250 sub-districts that distribute to all colleges in the university, and my faculty, Faculty of Agriculture, we in charge of 30 community. And at my own, to share from these 30 communities, I work with 3 communities. So this is big link between university to community, but for this project we have faced many challenges. So for me, is the first challenge is 1-year project. To work and to change farmer life, we need time. So 1-year project is too short to see the changes, or it's too short to know and really understand what the problem of the farmer or community and what they really need. So we cannot see any change much in 1 year. The second challenge is the key person in this project to work is a professor, a teacher in university, which that I mentioned before, that we require to do many things, research, teaching, and this one working with communities. So and working with community is time consuming, is need intensive work. So it's difficult for us to go back and work with the farmers intensively. And the third one is it's difficult to get people from university to working with the community, because the working with community is not research in some field. It's community development. In some area, it's not research for them. So they cannot publish. They cannot get a paper published from this work. So, and being a lecturer in university in Thai, we have to get published and we have to get promoted. In Khon University, we have to get promoted within 7 years. We have to be an assistant professor within 7 years after we start the job. So we need publications to get promoted. So to work with community is difficult for us in some field that we cannot get a research paper on that. And after this, when we get an assistant professor, we need to get the associate professor within 9 years. So that is mean we need publications, and through community is difficult to get publications. So it's difficult to find people to work in the community. And for me, as a teacher, to send the student to the community is not difficult. We can talk, but some challenge for me that is we always in the teaching term, we always ask farmers to give them knowledge and space and time for us. And what I think is the challenge is working with community is how to make the collaboration between community and university are meaningful for the communities, not only us, and how to get win-win the benefit from working together. That for me, that's still the challenge. Yeah, that's what I share.
Thank you, Micah.
Okay, thanks, Alif and Khon. I was going to make an impassioned speech here about how collaboration is not dead, but after hearing those two previous statements, I'm a little bit. I feel like it's dying a little bit, given the challenges of publication, and how collaboration isn't conducive to to publication. Although there's forms of co-publishing that have become more in common, and I think in those sorts of ways there may be ways to collaborate better, but that certainly isn't rooted on the kind of community engagements that we've been talking about today. I think collaboration is really hard, and I think that given the bureaucratic challenges, the teaching challenges that are not conducive to collaboration, I think it's becoming more difficult. And I think to revive it really if you don't practice those muscles of collaboration, you don't get better at it. And I've heard in a lot of forums, engaging with people who work with communities, whether it's adaptive collaborative management or participatory action research, or all these other forms and traditions of working with local communities. I've heard in many forums that collaboration has become a dirty word, in a lot of sorts of ways, because it's really hard to do well. And so if you don't do it well, there's a lot of trust that can be broken. I think that bureaucracies aren't supportive. It's hard, to get students working with communities. But all of that said, all of those really, really kind of high barriers to success and the challenges that we face, I do think that when people do collaborate well, I think it's really celebrated, and I think it can be really, really life-changing, right? Khon talked about her students, and the previous session of this webinar, the presentations by Krishna and Olivia talking about the experience of the Southeast Asia Field School, looking at how a place like the University of Hawaii can work with Khon and Hasanuddin and bring in networks of people who continue to be committed to working on these issues and partnering on how to innovate. I think there's lots and lots of opportunities. I think the bureaucracy issue is really huge, because I think there's a lot of fatigue from just the fact that the institutions aren't well set up for collaboration, and that makes it really difficult. I'll just share quickly an experience. We taught a class last semester about one of the most contentious sort of water issues here in Hawaii related to Red Hill. And it was, a lot of people said, oh, this is too sensitive, you can't take this on. But in actuality, trying to engage the different institutions to come to class, to speak in spaces, to engage on these sorts of issues was really sort of a welcome thing. And at the end of the semester, we had an event where all the different speakers, from all the different institutions involved with water in Hawaii, were able to come together, and students were able to present back to them what they learned through the semester, to think about ways that institutions can better collaborate. And the overwhelming response was, why aren't we doing this more? Why doesn't the university do more initiatives like this? And the Southeast Asia Field School, having these wonderful students go out to the field, learning about environmental ethics, learning, how to talk to farmers, how to talk to government agencies, how to do participant observation, how to think about how to analyze data together, how to rethink what is expertise and what is meaningful in research. I really think that there's collaboration's not going away. It may be getting harder to do it, but it really has a lot of benefits when it's done well. I'll stop there. Thanks, Millie.
Thank you all for sharing. Yeah, so we see a lot of barriers from the institutional side, and sometimes also with the local communities and the very complex dynamics that they have to navigate there. And so I think it's really important, as all of you are saying, to address these challenges. And thinking about, I guess, the role of universities as well, what are some of the advantages that universities have in terms of being able to create spaces for collaboration that maybe other types of actors can't do. So that leads us to our final question. So for all of you, what are some of the opportunities that you see for universities or researchers or students in higher education to work better with local communities? And if you have any kind of success stories from your work, I think everyone would love to hear it. Alif, please.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, this is the good questions. Yeah, so I like this is the question is organic collaboration or programmatic collaboration. I think in our experiences, organic collaboration is much more useful, yeah, than come with programmatic collaboration, yeah. So not trap on the only on programmatic collaboration, but also we build as organic. We call it organic because it is a kind of a process, yeah, and we learn from the process, improve it, and try to expand the networking and also more engaging more students. For example, this is the example is, for example, the collaboration with University of Hawaii Field School. It is not based on only of this programmatic collaboration, but we have already a connection before, yeah, especially Micah, for example. We have a lot of long-standing collaboration before, and then come up with the programmatic collaboration. I think it is a very good experiences from us, yeah. And I think also we need on the need assessment. I think we need also some involve local communities, yeah. What is really the need, yeah? What is really institutional gap or broader gaps, yeah? We need to see the to hear the local voices, yeah, and make some improvement. And under this, we have a very good platform under action research. Yeah, we can work together with the local communities and also involving our students, and not only depend on the formality. Yeah, sometimes we need this. It is required a formal yeah, for example, MOU or letter to the village community to get concerns, but not trap or being trapped on this a lot of formality or administration things, yeah. And I think the most important is also we need to really working also with young scholars and young practitioners, yeah. In our research group, working with the young scholars and practitioners always give us a spirit, yeah. This is only just example from our, we call it dosen muda, means Vika is dosen muda, is young lecturers, yeah, in our university, and also working directly with the students, involved them on all rules, yeah, from the planning and implementation and evaluation, yeah. I think it's very good learning with them, and also working with them and try to directly involve with local communities, yeah. And also we have also students that already have extensive experiences working with local communities and who brings knowledge and experience. This is two examples, yeah, Nur Hadi and Karno. They have long-standing experiences doing participatory action research in the local communities, and they are now doctoral students, and connected this with their activities and enrich our research group. I think this is also a very good experience for from us, and try to connect what is really need and make our collaboration meaningful. And so under within this research group, it is not only a research, but it's also a hoop, yeah, or bridge for, because we have two main students, graduate students here in Universitas Hasanuddin, yeah, in they are come NGOs led like Nur Hadi and Karno, and also from government staff, yeah. So we can see the two perspective and learn from them, and try to make much a meaningful collaboration and learn from them. Thank you.
Thank you, Alif. Kaen, please.
Yes, for me, I think there's right now the situation of working with community of the researcher is better than before. Yeah, because of right now the Thai government focus more on working with community. So we have a research grant platform from government that focus on the more on community development and how to improve farmer quality of life that they want the researcher to do in the community. So, and another one is we have that I mentioned before, that we have to get promoted to maintain our job in the university. That before that they think about only publication or international publication. So that is more on research. That in a few years ago we start discussion about another alternative of people who working in the community to get promoted. We call that the socially engaged scholarship, that they have to show that what they do in the community is meaningful, really meaningful for the community, that and they can report that. So they can use it to get promoted. That this one is encourage people to work in the community more. And the last one for me is right now we have a journals that accept and publish a paper about the research or about work about this kind of work. PAR, participatory action research, and who work with the community and make change or our learning process, how to work with community. This we have in Thailand, we have many journals to publish this kind of work. So it's not a barrier more for this. And for master degree in Thailand, we have to publish to get to graduate. So for this channel, I mean, we have many journals, so we can encourage our master degree to do a research in community and get published, and they can graduate. So I think this is still opportunity to do. Yes, yeah.
That sounds great that they are encouraging this sort of work to happen. So I'm very happy to hear that. Micah, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think everything's really been said. I just the only thing that I'll add is I think we really need to rethink everything, right? For me, the way that I think about the way policy making, I'll just give a quick story. We're working on a project right now, working with the Rockefeller Foundation to bring together community groups from 6 different countries who are working on what local communities are facing when it comes to climate change. And the overall impetus for a project like this is because a lot of initiatives on financing and policies and programs to support local communities for climate change aren't working. There are not the mechanisms to get the resources to the local communities that most need it is very difficult to do. So how do we rethink those approaches in more sort of strategic ways? And I think that's from a policy standpoint, but also from a university standpoint, the same goes for the university. So what I mean by that is, we just went through COVID, and the way that the ways that we learn about the ways that we go about learning, how classrooms, how online learning, how we engage have changed so much, right? The onset of ChatGPT or different sorts of tools for learning, things are, there's just a lot of questions about what the university of the future is going to look like. And I think all the things that Alif and Khon are spotlighting, who we bring into these programs at the universities, right? Who we spotlight, whether it's the leaders of local NGOs or the people who are already doing the best sort of approaches at community participation, developing alliances with local governments to identify new problems so that the research that comes out of universities are being used for this research to policy and engagement sort of nexus. The way we think about the classrooms, right, where people are based and how they engage in learning, how they then go out to the field and engage with local communities. And I just think there's such a thirst for being able to engage with these sorts of issues that I think rethinking collaboration is really, really timely at this time, because the systems that, people like Kaen and Alif and people in universities that have the ability to reshape the culture of what's important in those institutions is really going to shape what happens next. And so if a student who wants to be inspired comes into the classroom and has avenues to be able to work with local communities to better understand what those challenges are, that really reshapes then what the research priorities and the publication and the data collection then turns into, which then in a lot of ways that we don't recognize, that's what influences what goes into the news and the media and what people care about, and then turns into the types of priorities for policy making. And so that's a very idealized and simplified way of the way things work. But, all across the board, whether it's publications or the research topics, the support for students, all of those things can come together and be rethought in new ways through principles and improving and being more complex and deliberate about how we think about collaboration.
Thank you, Micah and Kaen and Ali, for all your very thought-provoking messages during this panel. So we're moving on to our Q&A sections. So for our audience members, please leave any burning questions you might have in our Q&A box. We would love to hear your thoughts or comments on this discussion on collaboration. So we have one question from Krishna Sriyanata from UH. Says, thank you for sharing your insights. Challenges are many, yet you are able to maintain positive thoughts. Your last points are uplifting, showing what you wish to do. So she asks, what can partners like University of Hawaii do to enhance your efforts, especially, given that we've just, been in collaboration with each other. So I think thinking broadly on the role of international collaboration and research as well, how can this, enhance any efforts in terms of community engagement? Just feel free to answer this, anyone who wants to go first.
Kaen, you go first.
I want to copy your answer. Me first. what I want, right? The question is how the US or international collaboration can support this
Yes.
engagement. Okay. For me, it's from happening last summer that we worked together. That the student, you send the student to be with us and to go with the community that help us a lot to encourage our master degree student to go in the field too. And it's just like two things for me is from we send them to the community that we work with. Is from the farmer side is that might feel that it take time. It take that time to give us data or anything that in another word, another way is this they feel so proud of themselves that others, foreigners want to learn about them and they have something to show that for me that is make meaningful for farmers. Yeah. And this is I think the way that we learn together. You have students from foreign students come to the field with my student is meaningful for my student to learn in in the academic things, just like how to collect data and how analyze other new tools. Maybe they can learn together and when they come to get the data, so we get and then they have contribute the idea how to do more research and how to develop the community. They have other ideas. That help us to think more about that. I think this is what I get from the collaboration. Yeah. Other than the plan for my student. Okay. Yes.
Okay, my turn. Okay, I think in here in Unhas for us, yeah, as a research group, we already let's say we already have created a space, yeah, for academic, for involvement to local communities. Yeah, this thing we need to still keep this space. Yeah, let's say academic freedom space or this is for students, yeah, that can do activities. And I think before I answer about what can international partners like Hawaii, I think the question is on me the first. Yeah, how can I protect this? We need to protection from the overwhelming or many tasks of administration things stuffs, yeah, in university. We need to deal with this first, and then answer these questions. Yeah, what partners like University Hawaii can enhance the efforts. Yeah, I think something similar with Kaen as well. Yeah, we need to much more integrating this with the more strategic way, and also still creating how to do action research in the local communities, and also integrating this with our curriculum as well. Yeah, we need to much more to see how to integrate this kind of space, yeah, into our internal curriculum. It is also good to see. So the continuation will still happen, and it is not only for students, it is also need for the docent, yeah, for the lecturers. Yeah, I think this is also capacity building for the lecturers, especially for the young lecturers, is also important. Yeah, I think That's what can I answer.
Micah, any thoughts?
Well, I don't know what I want from the University of Hawaii. But I guess
Ask for anything.
I can ask anything. Well, I also, I think the challenges are many, and lots of them have been talked about today, especially like the bureaucratic ones, and just I think bringing greater legitimacy to collaboration and more parity, right? The discussion about how to identify what the important research questions are. I think the University of Hawaii, I talked a little bit, very briefly, I alluded to it in the introduction, but there's been so many initiatives like the Collaborative Leaders Networks, the different departments, the Matsunaga Institute, Department of Urban Regional Planning, who have really had to work to bring community expertise into the classroom and to think about issues and policies and research questions around the perspectives of what's going on. And I think that by doing that, it really elevates the legitimacy of the issues and who has expertise over the issues. And that then translates into a real change in the culture of collaboration and what type of research areas become important. The ways that I see that collaboration being done these days, especially if it's a big public issue, is generally through government RFPs and consultancy contracts. But there just needs to be more spaces for organic ways to collaborate where students can bring together expertise together and get dialogue or go to communities. There's just so much stuff on participatory action research and citizen science that aren't being integrated into actual teaching or research principles that I think would be a real priority. And, I really think it's amazing what the University of Hawaii was able to do through this LuceSEA project to not just collaborate with Khon and Hasanuddin this last year, which took months and months and months of preparation prior to ever going to the field, but really turning over the authority and expertise to local universities and local communities, saying, what are the important research questions for you? And it was a little bit challenging at first. The question was asked back to the University of Hawaii saying, no, you tell us what you're interested in. So there was this back and forth of everybody being way too polite to one another. But I think having a real basis for deciding what those important questions are theoretically, methodologically, and issues based, as well as understanding how those issues are translated to those local contexts become a really change in culture and approach of doing research that I think would have profound and lasting impacts. I think about the work that Alif and our whole research network is doing on social forestry. And I think back to projects that Ford Foundation were doing, funding PhDs to collaborate with local communities to understand what issues of community forestry are. And so the legacy of asking those questions have become the expertise of the institutions of those places. So what we think is important and prioritized now become the priorities of the future mentees and the implementers of how people do things in these institutions. So that's how I would add to that question.
Thanks, Micah. I think that leads us very well into the next audience question, which is about how, often we have this perception of academics sitting in their ivory tower. So the question here is about how do you bring academic insights down to the ground? So for example, for this attendee they have some experience in agriculture, that a lot of university research are not quite applicable when it comes to the ground. It may not be able to solve community problems. So how can we bridge that gap between, again, what the academic frameworks or university priorities are usually telling us versus what is actually needed by communities?
Yeah, this is really good and critical questions, yeah. for the academic, that yeah, it's true, yeah, that sometimes, especially Indonesia, if you say that you are come from university, that say you are a hero, for example. No, it is not a hero. It is about a learning process within local communities. So it is, and within Indonesian academic, for example, you are working in a very, you have too many classes, and you also have some tasks for the community services, and you will deliver a very not a good quality community services or in the local level. So it is really critical questions, yeah, how we can navigate this. And in my experiences, we are very careful with this a solution based activities, yeah, on we need to really have a good base foundation of research in the beginning with the local community, learning from them, and come up with the what you call it a solution. I think the term of solution, it is a practical use, but sometimes it is quite we need to really not in a rush jumping with a solution in the local communities. And sometimes also we need more interdisciplinary, yeah, engagement. So now, for example, we cannot answer this, so we can probably we can involve other disciplines or other actors, yeah, for such a problem, for example.
It's me, right? So how to answer this? We have worked with the communities, many communities in the Northeast, and some mostly not really successful. A few successful, some is still on the way of. But the way that we do it is that I mentioned before, that some project is too short, but to work with community we need time. It's need long-term project. So sometimes the project end, but we have to still connect with the community and try to find any chance to get another grant or no grant to work with them. So that to show our sincerity for them, that we really need to help. And so we, as an agricultural faculty, so we have many departments. Once we start to work with them, we start with the talk to them, what they really need, what are the problems, something like that. And we try to make conversation, and then we will try together. And if this fail, and we will try another one. And we try to bring many disciplines that Alif mentioned, that we need not only one disciplinary, so we need many disciplines to help in the community. So as a researcher in agricultural extension, we try to connect many fields, researchers to come to solve problem, but one problem solved, but another problem come up. So we still working with them and help them, and not help just, okay, we provide this knowledge for you, and we learn together. If we fail, and we try to solve the problem, and we try again. That's what we try to do with the farmers. Yeah. Yes. Even is not successful, not change a lot, but they think that, okay, it change a bit and it will be better the future. Yes.
Yeah, I think this is a great question, and I think the themes have been running across the discussions today. You know, it makes me think of you know, I started by talking about agricultural extension programs, and a lot of those emerged where, you know, you have, for example, Javanese experts going to arid upland landscapes trying to teach local farmers how to produce rice in a specific way that create, you know, it really highlights the differences of expertise and local knowledge in really stark sorts of ways that can have really serious impacts on food security for local communities, and is part of the challenges of working between what is expertise in universities and what is local community knowledge. And I think there's something to be said about every single location being very different from one another, right? Every local context is different. Access to water, if we're talking about agriculture, access to water, soil type, you know, access to markets, all of those things have a really important are really important in determining outcomes and what's important for local communities and what to study. I think that's really the fundamental issue that we're talking about today. How can universities rethink its overall approach in working on research topic and issues? You know, I just have so many stories about this. I remember putting on Facebook once some farmer going out with a chainsaw cutting down a tree, and everybody on the Facebook account was just outraged. This is deforestation. This is the worst thing ever. And that tree should have been cut down. There was no reason for that tree to be there because it was a hazard. It was going to destroy somebody's house. And these are really smart, educated people saying that this is deforestation destroying Indonesia. So the context of scale and local issue, we all need to be better about trying to understand what that is. And I would say that, you know, agricultural extension, what Khon is talking about, or, you know, people who have studied collaborative governance or participatory action research have the frameworks for being able to look at different issues and approach them methodologically in unique sorts of ways. But I think, you know, the social sciences, especially the fields that I come from, if it's theories of property or access or exclusion, I think in a lot of ways, that's where the academic institutions can have a really important role, right? They can help identify what is happening through different frameworks and contexts and similarities and case studies, and providing examples of what has happened elsewhere, what solutions or what people have tried. And sure, sometimes there's always unintended consequences or new challenges to be dealt with. But I think that having that dialogue that goes beyond the place, but also acknowledges the importance, legitimacy, and expertise of place, spotlights really new possibilities of what an institution like a university can be, and how it approaches ways to solve problems with local communities in really meaningful sorts of ways.
Thanks, Micah. I feel like we could talk about this for 2 more hours, but we're almost out of time. So yeah, I think we've had a really important discussion here, and you know, it's going to be really great to try to pick up on this conversation going forward in the work that we do, or with each other and with everyone in the audience, if you would like to reach out to our speakers. So I guess, yeah, you know, in terms of meaningful engagement, we've talked about the importance of kind of listening to local communities and understanding that they have the expertise to adapt, to create solutions as well. Talked about kind of building trust with communities and how to kind of repair that trust. We talked a little bit about the methodologies like, you know, participatory action research, but also some of the challenges involved with implementing that. Who is carrying out the action, and how is this sustainable? I thought the discussion we had on, you know, the institutional support from universities was really interesting as well. And I think what I'm really struck by is just, yeah, everyone's willingness to listen, to reflect, to engage in dialogue, and I think have this honest and frank discussion about what has worked and what can be improved. And I think going forward, like having these reflections in mind will be very important. So and I just want to ask, are there any last comments that we have from any of you on the panel? Anything else you want to add? No? Okay. All right. Thank you very much then. This was
Thanks for moderating, Ming.
Thank you,
this was
thank
a
you, thank you very much.
great discussion. Okay, so for our audience, we have another webinar coming up next month. It's called Reflections on Cross-Cultural Research and Methodologies. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be featuring some of our students who took part in our collaborative field school, so that you can hear about their how transformative this learning experience was for them. So that's taking place on November 1st in the US and on November 2nd in Asia. So please visit the UAH Center for Southeast Asian Studies website for further information on the webinar. The link is in the chat. And also in the chat is a link for a post-webinar survey. So please, if you can fill that out to help the Center for Southeast Asian Studies improve their webinar quality. Thank you everyone for being here, and thank you so much to our panelists for being part of this conversation. It's a pleasure.